Hello.
No.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi!
Hey ho. Okay.
My phone says, wake up!
It's time to wake up. And
Mind your business, technology. I'll wake up when I'm good and ready.
welcome everyone.
Yeah, JD04, I am so tired.
We
tired.
feel it. We feel it. We are with you 100%.
So today in a breakout room, naps.
Welcome everyone. Things are going well with the marking. You can imagine it is a colossal undertaking, but just because of how awesome you are, most of the formats are consistent. We can read them for the short answers. We can do it like we're all good. We're just kind of finding out the few ones where there were some issues. Now we're going through them, but do not worry. Everything is going well. One thing that we want to reiterate is when the grades are released, when the grades are released, and some of you have 0 or something like that, do not panic.
Hold your towel.
Just relax. Yeah, don't panic. Let us know, and we will begin tracking down what the problem is. It's usually a very small percentage of little course link glitches or whatever. So if you remember writing the topic test, and yeah.
I have something to say.
You have something to say. He has something to say. What do you have to say?
I'd like you to show the number of coffees that you have within arm's length right now.
Oh, there are many coffees.
There are people in the chat who missed their coffee, and I just wanted you to know that Dr. Jacobs is there for you because they have at least 2 coffees and a Coke Zero within like a cubic distance
All the
of
caffeine.
their mouths.
I
only have 1.
I've
consumed already 3, but I only have 1 currently.
Currently, okay. Anyway, so it's really, I know it's really hard not to panic, and we always figure out what happened. We will always take care of you, and it will be okay.
I will remember.
So yes, the other thing that I wanted to let you know is this: if you do not get the grade that you are used to getting in previous academic institutions, so most of you will be coming from high school. If you do not get the grade that you are used to getting in high school, do not panic. If you get a grade that is about 15% lower than what you were getting in high school, you are exactly on the right track. Do not change what you're doing. Everything will be okay. If you get a grade that is catastrophically lower than what you're getting in high school, get in touch, and we will work through some different study techniques and all of those things. We'll do some stuff after class in the class session, in the student office hour sessions or whatever as well. Remember, this is 1 of 3 topic tests. The idea is that this grade includes your stress associated with most of you never having done a big midterm test before, or all of those things. We will not change the format. It will be exactly the same, so you'll know what to expect. That will hopefully reduce your stress, and you will hopefully do better next time. It's okay. Everything will be fine. And the other thing that I want to tell you is that this course in particular has such a ridiculously low failure rate that we don't get at a SLG, and we don't get all of those things because
we get investigated by,
we get
by
investigated.
The man. We get emails from the man.
Yeah. So yeah.
Look at my hair.
Look at
my
beautiful purple hair. We love that. That's amazing. Okay.
When did yours turn purple? You turned 16.
Mine
and it
turned purple when I turned 16. Okay. Wonderful. Okay, so I am going to stop this, but it's gorgeous. Sarah, if you're working on the tree, that's stunning, and I am a big fan of Among Us. We play it in my lab group. It's super fun.
Hold on 2 seconds.
Yeah?
Don't go anywhere.
Don't go anywhere?
Don't erase anything.
Don't erase anything?
I don't appear to be in the class. I'm outside in the hall.
You're in the hall?
I'm not actually in class.
You're not in class. Okay. So
I'm going to join class.
Okay. Welcome, Dr. Smith, to class. Are you going to screenshot this?
As soon as I get in the classroom. I'm having trouble with the door right now. I'm so sorry.
Okay. Oh, yay! Are you a Pink Floyd fan? Are you doing the Prism just because? Wonderful.
Or are you a fan of light?
Light. Yeah. I like light.
Yeah, I mean,
okay.
It predates Pink Floyd.
I bet you there's some people that are like, Jacob Smith, get on with it. Stop with the banter. So let's stop with the banter and get on with it. Yeah?
I think we're going to have to rewind the tape and say, how much was Smith bantering? Not so much.
It was me.
It was
me.
you.
Okay.
I'm all like, let's move on.
Okay. There's still people coming in. Welcome.
I know. I was out there in the hall with them.
Yeah. Yes, Pink Floyd song next time. Ooh. We're going to have to break away from our Canadian...
No, we already did, but we're going back to it.
With the Ramones, we broke away from our Canadian music tradition.
Because that's so few chords. That's like culture
It doesn't even count.
So few chords and so few words.
Okay, ready? Okay, let us...
And brilliance.
Screenshot?
Yes, I have got here into the class and I have painted a tableau of what we were observing.
Okay, wonderful. Yay. Okay, so... Squirrel Life starts like now-ish. You've already kind of filled out your little surveys to participate, to say you will be safe out there or inside, depending on how you're going to do your squirrel watching. We have Liz, my super fantastic, amazing master's graduate student who is going to come after class to answer any of your questions. So she'll be here today and on Wednesday. We have to keep it short during office hours because we have
I'm being short.
some just bizarre things going on in our schedules, but Liz will take over and be there to answer any of those questions. We'll be there for a few minutes as well to answer any other questions, and Dr. Ward Campbell should be there as well. Again, more questions, more answering, more awesomeness. Some social media associated with it. If you would like to take photos and send them to us or tag us, that would be amazing.
Can people still do the surveys if they forgot?
Yeah, I think so.
Yep.
All of those, yes, like just do it like today.
And if we had signed up for the tree project, did that transfer to the squirrel? No. Amazing that you were able to do that. Unfortunate.
The tree project was one that we ran last year, and we tried to remove as much of it as possible from all of the different places on CourseLink. It still kind of pops up. Click refresh on some of your pages as well. That might be some of it, but this project is the Squirrel Life project. It is not bonus. It is part of the course, because when we used to do it as bonus, we realized it was awesome and we wanted all students to benefit from it. So there you go. Okay.
It's almost as if when you put something up on the interweb, it's just there.
It's just there and doesn't go away.
And people find it.
Okay.
Think about that when applying for jobs.
Yeah. Okay. We hope you enjoy Squirrel Life. We certainly have had a blast working on it and getting it ready for you. Okay. Homework. Okay, so this is a question just about this panel. So find the panel that you were working with. It's not about all of the panels. It is about this one.
Is it about the one that's shown?
It's about the one that is shown.
Okay.
Okay, which means that if you didn't do your homework, you might be able to do it really quickly now. Launch. Go ahead.
And I'm going to say quietly in the background, I see their hands up.
They're working.
So put those questions in the
chat,
please. We don't see your hands.
Oh, I don't see your hands. Yeah, chat. Put it in the chat.
Shh. They're working.
They're working.
I already said that.
Okay.
It's not easy being quiet. Because you think of things you want to say and can't say them. Trying to be quiet. The microphone's not picking me up. Oh, look, it is picking me up.
It is. It's always loud here.
Not from me. I don't see them.
They're working. Look. 103. Look, they're working.
No. Is this on? Picking me up. Help.
They're working.
I know. We could mute. That's the sound of the computer.
That's my computer.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's a vacuum.
Okay, just a few more seconds. 82% of you have already clicked in. Thank you very much. We'll go up to 3 minutes. So about 30 more seconds. Okay.
Is it close? Why? I'm interested in why they're hearing it so much today.
Yeah.
Because it is all the time.
Yeah. There we go. Okay. Thank you, everyone. Well done. So, 51% of you got the correct answer. So, for those of you that were working through it and didn't click on the correct answer this time, don't worry about it. But to kind of give you a little bit of a hint before we move on, if you wouldn't mind telling me, so if we're going to try to figure out whether water has an effect or not, can you just stamp for me the two treatments that we need to compare if we want to figure out whether water has an effect? So just kind of circle for me or stamp for me which two we need to compare to figure out whether water has an effect. Super good. Okay. Yeah. It is B and C. That's right. And super good. B and C. Yes. Why do we compare B and C if we want to figure out what the effect is of water? Why are we doing that? Oh, good job, Megan. Yeah, good job, Rachel. Super. Well done.
Light variables stay constant while water changes.
Very
the only variable
good.
that changes
It's
because
the only
light has to
variable
remain
that's
constant for us to evaluate water.
That's right. Super good. Okay.
Well done, all.
Well done, all. Yes. Because that's the one that has the constant light. It doesn't matter whether it's high or low light. It's constant, and that's all that matters. So well done. And then, of course, you would do the same thing for light. Find the ones with the same amount of competition for water, irrespective of what that level is, and then the one where the light varies the most. Okay. Super. Well done. And if you didn't get that one correct, that's the solution for how to get to the correct answer. And hopefully you'll be able to go back and go through it. Okay, here's what we're doing today. You can read it later. We're going to do some stuff if we have time. We're running a bit late, but that's okay. We are going to talk about population density and carrying capacity. So we talked a lot about, in the past, we've talked a lot about biomes. We've talked a little bit about ecosystems. Now we're going down to population levels. We're kind of skipping communities-ish, but anyway, don't worry, we're good. We're kind of all over the place.
So we're talking about within species issues right now. We're talking about the ecology of elements of how individuals within a species will survive. And so, of course, we're going to drop back 115, almost 120 years, and we're going to think about moose. Because why wouldn't you want to think about moose? We're going to think about moose in Newfoundland. 1904, it is actually 1904 on the slide. 1904, my great-grandmothers, both of them, were pregnant with my grandfathers, both of them. They didn't know that, but they were. And this house that we are sitting in was under construction, but not finished. And it was 45 years before Newfoundland joined Confederation, so it was a protectorate of the British Empire. It was part of the Great Britain. And
The Britain.
yeah, it's harder to put on the, yeah. Rule?
Rule?
Britannia?
I don't know.
Britannia rules the waves? So British and American peoples brought across to Newfoundland from Labrador, where there are moose. They brought 2 bulls and 2 cows to Hawley, New Brunswick, to Newfoundland in 1904, and they did it explicitly with the idea that this would be a great, great. They would promulgate. They would propagate. There'd be all the gating. And there'd be many more moose, and they'd probably, the thinking at the time was that they would retreat to the interior of the island, so the people around the villages and towns on the edge would hardly ever see them. But it'd be a great way to zoom into get across the bog and get yourself a moose. This is, of course, not what happened. So 1904, they brought them. That is the first moose. That's one of the cows, and so American government officials, and there's varying bits of research about where they came from. It's either Nova Scotia or Maine. But if you look at that Y at the x-axis there, going from 1900 to the year 2000, fights hard against himself not to sing Conan O'Brien in the year 2000. In the year 2000! No. There were many more moose, but they went from 4 to hundreds of thousands, to numbers that are upwards even today. So if we could kind of keep this line going for another 20 years, another couple of decades, it's going back up again. So there's plus or minus, say, 150,000 moose on this one island. There are no predators, no natural predators there. And there are a lot of problems then, because they're herbivores, of course. They're big, giant herbivores. And so 4 led to approximately 120,000. And you can think about what the people of Newfoundland might have to deal with in terms of this species as its population level variables respond to being put into this new environment and change through time. So what is one of the things, that slide that you're looking at right now, on the right-hand side, you might take that title of that article and think bologna. Well, bologna, salami, and pepperoni, that of course, while being also delicious, is maybe a hint to think about predation. But then also what they are eating and how they are reproducing. And these are the kinds of things that you need to know about as an ecologist, as a biologist, as a biodiversity scientist who's interested in studying and learning about and making predictions about things at a population level. And this is going to keep happening because we keep moving things around. We're particularly good at doing things that we don't anticipate ramifications from. I never knew.
Who'd have thought?
Rabbits all over Australia, approximately 200 million. Europeans all over Australia, they also promulgated quite a bit. Populations of hippos were taken by Pablo Escobar in a cocaine-fueled imaginary, this is a great idea. And today there's hundreds and hundreds of hippos and they're not going to be able to get rid of them. Hippos are nasty, awful beasts. I say that without value, but they're not going to be able to get rid of hippos in Colombia. Just as they are not able to get rid of pythons from Asia that are all over, hundreds and hundreds of thousands across the Everglades.
Just as they're not going to be able to get rid of beavers in Tierra del Fuego, Argentina.
Or if you're sitting here in eastern North America, in Ontario, and you think bullfrogs, and bullfrogs are kind of a species of concern here, but they are also a species of concern in British Columbia, where they have been taken, and as a voracious large amphibian, they just eat all other things. And so, to live or to change where you're meant to be can be a very catastrophic thing.
So don't fuck with nature.
I'd say not safe for work, but we're at work.
Okay.
So put on your helmet and let's go.
So we need to be able to think about, what can we actually measure? What numbers can we assign to populations? How can we describe populations, right? What variables can we attribute to the level of population? And we've been asking you to think about this for a little while, right? What variables matter at each of these things? So here's a ridiculously long list of things that you can measure in a population. You can measure their distribution, their abundance, so that's the number of individuals, the density, so the number of individuals per area, so kind of like, distribution and abundance mixed together, numerator, denominator, and voila, a whole new number. You can look at their birth and death rates. You can look at their sex and age structure. You can look at their fecundity, so that's the number of eggs produced. You can look at fertility, so that's the number of viable eggs or that produce viable offspring. Production, number of offspring produced by a population. And recruitment, number of individuals reaching breeding age. That includes offspring and immigration. You can look at emigration. This is not a comprehensive list, but just to give you an idea of like all the variables that you can study at the population level.
Can I throw? Yeah. So it's not it is not a comprehensive list, but these are kind of the classic, most elegant things that we would aspire to know about many species so that we could model this, we could make predictions.
Yep.
And I wanted to call out the fact that for most species of the world, we can't even estimate these things. Why can't we do that? Because we don't even know most species of the world.
They don't exist.
So even before this is our capacity to be able to identify the species, identify the sexes of the species, so that we can then map where it is, count what it is, and estimate all of these arrival and departure measures. But for vertebrates, generally, we're pretty good at this, except when we find out there's 6 giraffes.
6 species of giraffe? Yeah. Okay, so just to give you a kind of example, right? Its scale matters. Geographic scale and body size matters with respect to being able to measure these things, right? Some of these things are microscopic, some of them are not. Some of them exist in sort of natural high density clumps, other things don't. And so all of the context needs to come with you as you measure these things, right? You cannot compare the density of elephants to the density of diatoms and make any kind of reasonable conclusions if you don't incorporate all of their natural history and all of their context, okay? But here we go. So we're talking about density. Density is number of individuals in that population per unit of area. And it has to be contextual, so it has to make sense, right? You probably wouldn't start measuring diatoms over kilometers in terms of volume.
I would love to do
I
that.
would love to, but the number would just be so inaccessible, right?
I mean, these are microscopic things that you can count from space when they have outbreaks.
Yeah,
So.
yeah. And so for ladybird beetles, 50 is a lot per meter squared. For diatoms, 5 million per meter cube.
Yeah. So it's a density per area or volume,
Or
if
volume.
we're talking about a marine or an aquatic thing.
Yeah. Okay, so super, super easy equation to follow if you would like to figure out how a population changes over time. There are some variables that increase the population size, and there are some variables that decrease the population size. So population at time 1, so wherever you're starting, sometimes we start at time 0, but whatever the time is, it's going to be less than what it will be in the future.
Whoa.
Whoa. Okay, so population at time 1. And then what we do is we want to figure out what population at time 2 is, and if it has increased, it's going to be due to 2 things: birth and immigration, okay? And then if population at time 2 has decreased, that's going to be due to death and emigration. Okay? Nice and easy.
Matching, dispatching.
Right. So, well done. So, if you want to write that out mathematically, you don't need to worry about writing it out mathematically if you can talk yourself through it. But here's what it would look like. Population at time 2 is equal to population at time 1 plus the births minus deaths plus immigration minus emigration. And there you go.
So I think, and just a shout out to math as a language, or these expressions as a language. Sometimes you might have been taught to go tense and to feel a little stress when seeing this, but I like the simplicity, or I would say consider the simplicity of that there's a whole bunch of things. I just emphasized how little we know for many species. This is trying to collate so many things, so many actually complicated and intensive time and resource intensive things into a prediction. There's value to that. How much value is going to be, it's going to depend on the question.
It depends on you and your creativity as a scientist.
For instance, one Patak in the chat just asked if this is with respect to a certain area, and exactly, yes. And so that's up to you to determine. If you're doing this in silico, if you're just doing a modeling exercise, you would determine the area, the shape, the dimensions that you would model your little electrons as they go around your simulation.
Boundaries.
Pardon me?
The boundaries.
The boundaries.
Yeah, the boundaries.
Yes.
Okay. Super good.
I love this part.
This part is so fun. Okay. And you know what? Maybe... what?
Before we start, I just want to... So someone else noted when we're talking about the addition, there's also problems with deletion, and that can cause big population level changes and associated interacting species changes. And their example was Yellowstone, wolves out west. Yeah.
That's
and
so
of course,
cool.
wolves all over the place. Yellowstone's just, from our perspective as settlers in North America, a little more recent. But the same thing would have happened in Italy or Great Britain or everywhere else that our friggin' species has eradicated other predators.
So good. Okay, so then within a set area, you could have 100 individuals in one habitat and 100 individuals in another habitat, but where they are within that area may be different. And so we need a way of describing the spatial pattern of distribution within an area. And there are 2 or 3 different ways of describing it. Okay, there's definitely 2. The third one I can't wrap my head around, but I'm gonna teach it to you because it exists in the world. The first one is clumped. And so what we see here is that there isn't this sort of, kind of pattern even distribution within, that there are sort of aggregates or groups of individuals of that population centered around something. It could be something like food, it could be suitable habitat for mating, it could be a bunch of different reasons, but what we end up seeing is that they are clumped within their total range. There's also even distribution, which is not clumped, which basically means that they are spread out, usually at sort of more or less sort of equal distance to each other. Now, obviously, there are going to be some things that prevent that, so you want to kind of zoom out on the scale and take a look at how they're spread to see whether or not it's even distribution. And it's definitely not clumped in this particular case, right? And there are some reasons for that, like territoriality. Now, when we talk about territoriality is applied at the individual level, but we can observe it at the population level, because what it results in is this even spread of individuals. An individual who is territorial is defending its own range, its own individual space. And if I'm doing that here and you're doing that over there, then we are going to have this space that's more or less even. Okay? And then there's random. And dude, can you do random? Because I don't get it. I don't understand.
So I would say, and that's what you mean when you write out, what's that film?
Yes. WTF. What's that film?
What is that film? So I would say it's a film about the world's most boring chessboard, where there is only, if you play chess, rooks move, where it can just be like boop, 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 boop. And so random movement, I would say, could
random
be...
distribution.
Random distribution could come about in simple things that have no tight association with a clumped variable in their environment. So a well-mixed...
A marginally clumped.
No, it doesn't even have to be.
Okay.
But even, so just a well-mixed...
yeah.
A well-mixed...
Cauldron?
Called Baba, Quail and Trouble.
Anyway.
So in an aquatic environment, if resources are just kind of around
yeah.
and mixing, and there's no advantage to being super high or super low, super on the rock, super in the matrix, then that could come out like that. I also am here to represent for the idea that our capacity to model this is important as a null hypothesis, to identify either those other things by saying, well, it's not this.
Yes. It may just be that we haven't figured out what it is yet, so we call it random.
Yeah.
Anyway, random's weird.
That's certainly out there too, that we just haven't identified. We have a way of looking at things, literally of seeing things, and we use as a measure of that bias, we use to see as to understand, and most of the world doesn't see at all.
Right.
So, who are we to say?
Okay.
What's that film?
What's that film? Okay. So this is what it might look like. We've seen butterflies clumping.
I love that bird picture. Oh
I know, it's so even. It like totally satisfies like all of my needs to have things in equal rows. This is
what gardener planted those birds?
I know. Okay, so with clumped, we see butterflies congregating around habitat, congregating on trees, right? Congregating amphibians on ponds. All of those things are clumped because the resource that they need is there. Gannets, seabirds, amazing, are always far enough away so that they don't poke each other's eyes out.
Isn't that great?
And they are close enough so that they can defend each other from predators and other things. And so we see this beautiful, even distribution that almost forms perfect rows in some cases, kind of like planted corn. And then random, WTF, no idea. We just put in a photo of a cactus.
Because it's aquatic.
Yeah. So, quick, Stamp, tell me which one of these distributions is usually associated with humans?
Clumped?
Haha.
We agree.
Super good. Okay. Well done. Thank you. Clumped. We are guessing largely clumped, some of us random. That's totally fine.
Clumped.
I'm feeling clumped right now. We're clumped. Okay.
And that was accentuated during the pandemic, wasn't it?
It really was. We were very clumped. Yeah. It was very clumpy. Okay. Let's take a look at this part of the world, a familiar part of the world. We are right here. And what do we see? Where are the humans? If we just take a look at the different towns or the different municipalities, it looks pretty clumped, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Clump cities.
Yeah.
Where are those cities in Southern Ontario? Throw those in the chat if you've got...
Yeah. So what's the reason for the clumping? What variable might be the explanation for the clumping associated with Southern Ontario and Northern U.S.?
Along the Great Lakes.
Urbanization.
Yeah. Really good. So somebody's guessing urbanization. Super good. But like what might have led to that urbanization? Here we go.
Centered around the U.S. border, access to water, waterways, historical. So all those things tying in to
good.
how Europeans
colonized
arrived here.
Yeah. So the colonial history is such that it was super accessible to the big ships coming from Europe, all the way up into the Great Lakes, and accessible to fresh water, of course. So.
And then secondarily to water again as a power source.
That's right. Yeah. Okay. Really good. Except let's play with scale a little bit. So we've established a geographic scale.
And some of you in the chat have been thinking about
And
scale.
what happens?
We see you.
When we zoom in. So what distribution would this be?
Hey, somebody's stealing my car.
That is not our house. Yeah. What distribution is this now? There we go. Even. Cool. Yeah. So scale matters, right?
Oh my God. Even. Oh
my goodness, it's even. And again, this could be explained through territoriality, right? We want our little plot of land, or most
Neighbors
of us do.
Out on the lawn going...
Fences being built, all sorts of things. This is my spot, right? So scale matters.
Little boxes on the hilltop. Boxes full of ticky-tacky little...
So this just kind of is a review of some of the things that we talked about, what some of the reasons, some of the explanations that might go into explaining the different distributions, right? So for clumped, it could be due to food, water, resources. For even, it could have to do with territoriality. Clumped could also have to do with cooperation. So all of the natural history variables of the species matters to explain it.
So there's a contesting point in the chat that the Mantle says humans are a bit different though. This is mostly due to just bad city planning.
Also,
which is true, but I would argue that they are both true. This is, yes, bad city planning. That's happening at a population level. In our species, how we regulate that kind of thing is it has more written subtleties than just leaning over and kind of biting, and it's only as far as we can lean and gnash our teeth. But that's the same. It's the same. It's our behavior. That's just written down examples of codifying our behavior.
Yep. Okay. Carrying capacity is another population variable that we have to tell you about. So, carrying capacity simply means it's sort of the maximum number of individuals in a population that defined area or space can support. And it means that at some magical number called the carrying capacity, the population size of that population, of that species, does not increase for a whole bunch of reasons. And when we look at the growth of a population over time, we have this magical little S curve, right? Where population is low, population size is low down over here, but the growth rate is pretty high. And then there's this inflection point where population size doesn't start to decrease, but the growth rate can start to decrease to this magical carrying capacity, this plateau. So we've talked about saturation points and plateaus before in a different context. And here's another plateau, right? That is a mathematical relationship that we can study over time. So what we'd love for you to do is to pick a letter, any letter, and tell us what might be happening to that population at that moment. You can draw, you can color, you can put it in the chat.
I think it'll be easiest if
either in the chat, right? Yeah, okay. Does this apply to humans? We just keep multiplying. Hold that thought. If we can get through it really quickly, we will talk about humans in a second because, yeah, they're messed up. What might be going on at like A? What could be happening in the natural history of that species if the population size is at A and the population growth rate is at A? What could we say? Oh, here we go. Lots of E's.
Everybody's jumping
E's is
into
good.
E.
Yeah.
Carrying capacity being reached, almost equal amount of births and deaths.
Yeah.
The population is leveling off at E. E is the maximum point. A, unlimited resources. A, the population is just starting out to introduce to an environment. It is just starting to grow in A.
Yes. Oh, bottleneck at A. Yeah. So maybe before that, the population was bigger and then it collapsed and it's starting again. Wonderful.
B, thriving. Lots of births and resources.
Yes.
Probably the initial growth is all up at B. At C, population size is increasing very fast. C, population's at the ideal population size. Population and the resource is equal. C is more intense than B.
Yep.
C, maximum growth rate.
Super good.
Yeah.
Super good. Okay.
D, resources are becoming more finite. Population and growth is starting to slow down at D. War and disease are threatening at D.
Excellent.
I like there's someone running a scenario in their mind.
Wonderful.
More competition at D.
Okay. Well done.
Food becomes important.
Good. Well done. Okay.
These are good. I'll capture these and put them on a slide.
Very different. See, humans are kind of the exception in many things, but we also totally stick to the rule. It's just that we use our sort of Extended phenotype, our other traits, our technology, our medical science, our colonization, our all sorts of things in order to change the carrying capacity of our environments. So that's what makes it different.
So the elegance of that simple, the birth, emigration, death, emigration equation at time, if you want to know it at time t+1, you know it at time, and then you add those elements in. It's simple, however, species can change those elements. Each one of them can be modified by behavior, by technology, and so we are an example of that here.
Yeah. So yes, and it's kind of to the extreme. Okay. This is fun, challenging. But what happens if you have a population that you would like to restrict its growth? So imagine you have raspberries in your backyard or somewhere, and they totally invade and they totally take over, and it's very difficult to figure out how to control that population, right? Or you have a whole bunch of rabbits on your continent that you need to control. So
hello, officer.
You can control a population in two ways. You can control them using a density-dependent treatment factor or a density-independent treatment factor. Density-dependent means that the mechanism by which that control factor operates is dependent on density. The independent one means that the mechanism is not. And I feel like, maybe unfortunately, going through COVID right now, we understand the difference between density-dependent and independent a lot better. So, density-dependent factors affect per capita birth or death rates in a way that depends on the population density. So the denser the population, the more effective that treatment is. And I hope that, well, I don't want you to think about COVID because we could all use a vacation from COVID, but like this is COVID, where in the denser population areas, it transmits much more easily because it's a face-to-face kind of contact type of transmission. So if you want to develop some kind of population control mechanism that spreads in that way, it is density dependent. That means that it will not spread nearly as quickly in less dense areas.
And I know it's frustrating to keep thinking about COVID, but I mean, this is one where really very literally we've all been living with this, where our response to this is to decrease density, is to spread out. And
that's right. So that's the example. Now, density independent doesn't mean that they don't work. They could work super well, but the mechanism by which they work has nothing to do with how dense the population is, okay? So think about, like, if you want to think about like catastrophic nuclear fallout, it doesn't matter how dense the population is, everyone will be affected. Okay, the mechanism has nothing to do with the population density in order to spread. So it is per capita birth rate is not dependent on the population density. We have some homework that's going to help get through this a little bit, okay? And so a hard freeze, for example, independent of population density. The way that it works, not necessarily the outcome. Obviously, the more dense the population, the more numbers will be affected, but that's not what we're talking about. When we're talking about density independent or dependent, we're talking about the mechanism by which that treatment works. So, think about your favorite zombies. There are many types of zombies.
Shaun of the Dead.
We are big zombie fans. We like all of the zombies. But question for you. Question for you. Would a zombie apocalypse, if we're thinking about the human population and we're controlling it, okay? We want to reduce it in some way, we want to limit its growth. Would a zombie apocalypse, if you launched one, would that be a density independent or dependent human population control mechanism? What do we think?
Pop it in the chat. Dependent are the first many guesses.
Yep. People are liking dependent, density dependent. Why? What are you thinking about? What is the transmission mechanism?
dependent means more humans make more zombies. Dependent if it's a contagious virus.
Yeah.
Bitey.
Good.
Depends
Bitey,
how
bitey.
bitey they are.
Yeah. Super good. Okay. Yes, the mechanism matters. Not necessarily that there are more people that die in denser places. It's the mechanism. It's the close contact bite to bite. But and I don't want to do like a spoiler alert for The Walking Dead, but like it's been like what,
Oh my
12
God.
years. Okay.
And sharks have been jumped.
So, in the first season, we think it's all density dependent, right? Close contact, bite to bite kind of deal. Cool, that makes sense. Except for, spoiler alert, what happens? What we quickly learn that it's actually density independent. What's like the thing? Have you watched Walking Dead? Or maybe are you too young for Walking Dead?
No, everybody, there's some ideas.
Everybody already has the virus. So if you die, you automatically become a zombie. Yes, density independent, right? Does that make sense?
So, because I believe we might be speaking to lots of people who have zombie aficionados.
Yes.
There is actually a Canadian zombie movie where the method of infection is density independent. If you haven't run into Pontypool, directed by Bruce McDonald,
Nice.
that's sound. That's not density dependent.
Yeah.
The zombies are made.
That's right.
In your followed analogy, it's just like playing the radio. There it
Yeah.
goes.
Yeah.
It's
So,
a good movie too.
Yeah. So it isn't about the effect, it's about the mechanism when we're talking about density dependent and independent population control mechanisms.
Somebody thinks
okay?
that's a major spoiler.
Oh no, I'm sorry.
But there's so many, like they spoil it themselves.
Okay, so the answer could be either of those things, right? Depending upon the mechanism. Super important to keep that in mind. Okay, we talked about this stuff already. That's fantastic. Okay, so if this is what you get, you go out and you do a study to look at the effects on the United States with respect to a zombie apocalypse, and what you see is this on a map, right? So we have no zombies in the green area, and we have zombies in the red area. Would this evidence support a density dependent or independent mechanism? And if you're having difficulty answering it, where on the map are you getting tripped up?
There's your questions that you're asking yourself in the chat are where you're gonna get. That's great.
Super good. Yeah. So this is in the last minute. You're getting tripped up in Nebraska, and I totally get that. And this is messy biology. This is like those fuzzy borders, right? Where our brains tend to look for the exception that like nullifies the rule, and we ignore that millions and millions of data points support our hypothesis of density dependent, but like a few data points in the middle are like not. So like what do? It's not true, but it is, but it isn't. This is what biological data look like, and we do tend to focus on the exceptions and give them more weight, right? But what could be going on? Why might Nebraska have this like high level of zombie apocalypse? Like what could be going on in The Walking Dead such that they all end up there?
They denied the existence of zombies and just continued to live life as normal. They kept having their
freedom,
their motorcycle.
Yeah, sure. It could be a bunch of things. This could be a temporal anomaly where like a whole bunch of people from New York and California moved there.
It's travel. The idea that
Yeah.
it's got to be travel.
Exactly, right?
Oh, the whisperers are hurting them there.
Nice, nice. Okay. So don't allow these like anomalies to trip you up. Use them as an opportunity to dive in deeper and study more and learn more about the mechanisms that are explaining that. I hope that makes sense. Yeah? Good. Okay. Cool. And so homework. We've got some homework for you, but first, always be prepared.
And this is literally true. This is from the Centers for Disease Control. This is a pre-COVID thing, but it was an exercise that they prepared for different municipalities and regions to prepare themselves
In case
of some kind of a communicable disease.
Yeah.
And you can model it.
And you can model it with population growth curves. Check it out.
And if you don't
Super
know
fun.
all these zombie films, check them out.
Yeah, and go
Le
here.
Revenant is it has a sense of French ennui.
It's too slow.
It's very lovely.
Okay. And then always save yourself before you save others. Homework. Here you go. It's all explained. Big boxes, big questions for you, and we will have some homework to take up on Wednesday. Here we go. We want you to graph some things just like we were graphing, and hopefully all of that will become a lot more clear to you. So 2 minutes late. Take care, everyone.
Take care of each other.
Bye.
I'll go in the basement.